everybody. Boy, do I have a treat for you today. I've struggled a lot with how to do this introduction. In fact, I considered just introducing myself because I know you all know who this guy is. He truly needs no introduction. So I'm going to get right into it and introduce Payneblade as today's guest. How are you, man?
Nite, I'm doing fantastic. Thank you so much for having me. You're putting a lot on my shoulders here. You know what? I appreciate you for saying those kind words. I appreciate you for not doing an introduction because I'm really, really embarrassed by those things. But I'm doing great. I'm really happy to be here. Thank you for taking the time to do this. I can't wait for this interview.
Awesome, awesome. Now, I have to say, first and foremost, thank you for agreeing to do this interview with me. When I first came up with the ideas for doing these, I made a list of people I wanted to interview, and your name was in bold letters at the very top. Never did I think I'd be getting you on my third one. And, you were so receptive to the idea and made this a very easy process. So I just have to express to you how grateful I am for you taking your time to do this, not just for me, but for everyone who will watch this.
It's absolutely my pleasure, man. Honestly, like when I was told by a few people you were number one shy or too embarrassed to reach out, I was a little bit disappointed because I did check out your interviews with Tix. So shout out to Tix and Alk, who you did a magnificent job putting together. By the way, there were exciting interviews. We get to know the players behind the names. And I think you do a masterful job of putting a professional and very engaging interview. So I was very excited to know you were interested in this. So as much as you're thanking me, I want to thank you, and also thank the community, obviously, for being interested in these interviews. Because I think there's no one out there doing these right now quite like you. So well done, and again, it's an absolute pleasure being here.
So, Payne, I want to do this a little bit differently than normal. I think it's safe to say everyone knows that you make high quality Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis content.
Why, thank you.
You're welcome. And if you don't know, now you know. Yes, that was a Biggie reference. Anyway, I think people would be better served to go to your channel to watch your videos than to have me ask you a whole bunch of questions about Ever Crisis strategy or what have you. So instead, I think this interview is an amazing opportunity to get to know the man who is Payne and get some insight into why you are who you are.
Yeah, totally up for that, honestly, and I appreciate you going that route instead because, like you said, we cover Ever Crisis on a daily basis, so it's nice to get something different and show the community who we are as people.
Absolutely. And, obviously I copped out on your introduction by saying you truly don't need one, which is 100% true. But I do think you deserve one. However, there's really just so much to say. And because this is an interview, I'd rather highlight you than spend 10 minutes sitting here talking about it. So what I'd like to do is just go over the things that I had planned to cover in my introduction. And if you could just give your thoughts and kind of expand on those, that would be great. Can we do that?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Shoot, and remember, open book policy. Anything you say, I'm all up talking about. I'm completely truthful and honest about everything. I'm not afraid. So anything you have, man, just let it rip.
Greatly appreciate that, because
course.
I am always wondering. I don't want to pry if people aren't comfortable with that.
Yeah, no, totally understandable, and I respect that level of privacy and dignity that you have with your audience and your interviewers. But yeah, with me, it's completely open book, man. So I'm totally up to talk about anything you want to talk about.
Excellent. So first off, your videos, amazing content, obviously, but specifically, what separates you, in my mind, from many other content creators is that your videos always feel as if you're including us in the conversation, or as if we're in the room with you, so to speak. Is this something that comes naturally to you, or something you actively think of while you're recording your videos?
It's a great question. It's the first time I've actually heard that, and I appreciate you saying this. So it's funny that you mentioned that. I'm assuming, being close to my age, I'm not outing your age or anything, but you made a Biggie reference, so instantly I'm going to say you're my age. I am a huge fan of Christopher Walken. Okay, so the actor. Shout out to Christopher Walken, obviously, here. And I remember someone saying to me that when Christopher Walken is on camera, he always wants to speak to the audience as if they're there. And I found that to be extremely, how do I say? I almost want to say extremely important to me as a viewer, because I always felt like when he spoke or when he acted, he was kind of acting for me or doing it on my behalf, or someone speaking to me and that's somebody I looked up to. And I kind of take that approach, not purposely, but I always have that in the back of my mind that when I'm speaking on camera or when I make a video or when I'm sending a message, I want to dedicate it to the community. I want to dedicate it to the people, and I want the people to be engaged with that message or that video, and I want them to feel that they're not only part of it, but it's all about them, right? So to me, the community always comes first, right? It's always been about the community. I've always strived to make the audience feel very engaged, and that's why I'm very adamant about almost answering every comment that comes my way. I take a set amount of time every day to sit down, read comments, go through them, and answer them. So absolutely, thank you for noticing that. It's I do this not for the viewerships. I don't do this for the money. First and foremost, for me, it always comes down to like I want to engage a community of players, like-minded people, and have them involved. And sometimes it makes their day. So yeah, no, absolutely. You're totally bang on. I do try to get people involved somehow through my methods. Yeah, you hit it right on the nail on the head. Like it's Christopher Walken's influence for me growing up, and that one quote that somebody said kind of stuck with me. So I told myself, if I'm ever on camera and I have a platform, the people who watch me, I want them to feel like they're part of the experience.
That makes a lot of sense to me, and I can tell you, it's the biggest reason for me personally, and I imagine this applies to a lot of people out there who are going to listen to this. This is the reason why I can watch videos that you put out on games I don't play, because I still feel like, I don't know, this is maybe sound a little bit weird, but like I have you up on YouTube and you're going over, let's say, Reverse 1999, right? A game that I don't currently play. Just listening to you kind of go through the game and talk, I don't know, it gives me this like feeling of friendship, like I said, and inclusion. And that's unique. I just don't get that with a lot of other YouTubers.
Yeah, no, and I think that's important to me that comes off, and I really appreciate you highlighting this because I've always said in all my videos and everything I've put out, like for me, the community matters the most because we are a bunch of older, younger gamers, men, women included, doesn't matter what you are, who sit behind a screen and we watch and we intake a lot of information. And the last thing I ever want to do is number one, be boring, and number two, not engage the people that I'm intending this to be part of. So I totally appreciate you mentioning this because, like you notice on Discord, like I'm always active on Discord, talking to the community, being part of it, making jokes, trying to highlight my personal life in there and throw it in and make sure that people understand like Payne is a person, not just somebody out there looking for numbers. And I think I pride myself on that more than anything else. It's just being able to be as sincere and as genuine as possible, being myself throughout the entire process. And the moment I'm done with it, I'm done with it. That's just because it's me. I'm not doing it as a job. I'm not doing it as a career. This is a hobby for me. And for it to be fun, I expect to have people ride along. I'm one of those guys that if you listen to J. Cole, he says, you don't fly first class without the homies. I kind of feel the same way about the community. I like to take people for the ride, right? If I'm succeeding, I want my community to succeed. I want you guys to be part of that success, and I'll do anything I can to make people feel included in that. So again, thank you very much for noticing that. It does mean a lot to me.
Yeah, you're very welcome. It is a much deserved compliment. So, yeah, you touched a lot on community in your response to that, and that was actually the next thing that I'd kind of wanted to discuss. I think you already kind of answered some of it. I just wanted to kind of, I guess, maybe delve into why community is so important to you, and then kind of as a second part of that question, because another thing you have done for this gaming community is started your Discord. And a lot of people go there, myself included, not only to kind of meet people and hang out, but also to get tips on the game or, share things we're excited about, etc. And as I don't know, I thought I don't know how I heard it, if it was a comment that was made in passing by you at one point or another, but I came to understand that you were a little bit hesitant about actually doing a Discord server at first. And I wanted to know if you could shed some light on those things.
Yeah, of course. So, let's go back a little bit on the community comment. So why does community matter so much to me? So I'm 40 years old. I think I've mentioned my old ass already as many times as I possibly can. But I think growing up in the 80s and 90s, I have the fondest memories of inviting closest my handful of, or maybe two handfuls, so maybe up to 10 of my closest friends over to my house. And I remember we'd sit there for hours on end, just playing video games, like whether it's Street Fighter or if it was Puzzle Fighter or if it was like an RPG people just wanted to watch. Just having that presence of other people as a gamer around me has felt lost in this day and age. Everything is so virtual now. Everything is so misplaced. Like I can't even invite one friend over lately because life is just so busy, being older, obviously. So the community aspect kind of brings back that feeling of my childhood. I think, and I think a lot of us live in that childhood because we had some of the fondest memories there. So I think now being able to build a larger community virtually and now being able to connect with people I would have never normally connected with has given me the appreciation of human connection again. Something that a lot of people don't have. And a lot of people rely on virtual human connection nowadays more than anything else. So I think that plays a big role in that. And number two, obviously, just being a father now, a husband, and a full-time IT career specialist, and of course doing this on the side. I just don't have time to go out and meet up with friends as much as I would love to, and I don't have the same amount of time to go meet new people. It's not in the cards. So this kind of helped me kind of put Discord back together. So when I first started content creating back in 2019, when COVID hit, when my first son was born, or my first child was born, sorry. I had never any experience in the social media platforms. I never used YouTube, never even thought about it. Somebody asked me, you know what, listen, you're pretty good at these games. Why don't you just try putting your voice on YouTube and see how it goes? Shout out to MRN, who was a big fundamental part of my growth, did all my thumbnails for me. He was incredible, super support system. And after doing a first handful of videos, I kind of caught the bug. And it just started kind of rolling, and people started catching on. And it's, the first 6 months were dreadful because I had horrible mic, horrible quality in production. But as I grew, I learned, and I got better, and I started, growing in channels. And then eventually, I realized that a lot of people wanted to get a hold of me, and somehow just talk to me, right? And I had a Discord account, and that's when I decided to create a Discord. But then I shut that Discord down after my second was born. And I stopped doing content creating for a whole year. I never thought I'd come back to this, by the way. So the reason why I've restarted the Discord is that same feeling of I miss the community. Like I miss interacting with people, because when people were DMing me or getting a hold of me on Discord, it wasn't to like have a normal conversation. It was more like, hey man, I'm a huge fan of your work, blah, 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 and the usual stuff you'd get as a content creator. And I felt people felt a little bit pressure to talk to me. And I didn't want that, because that was never the point. I don't see myself any different than anyone else. So I created this Discord to kind of create a safe haven of gamers, like-minded individuals to come and get to know me, also get to know each other. And I always say this is exactly how I treat it. And I tell my mods the same thing. My Discord is a house party. You come, you have a great time, you learn about one another, you interact with people, you enjoy your time there. The moment things get out of hand, the police gets called, you get kicked out, and the house party goes on. That's all it is. I just want it to be a regular house party from back in the day where people just chilled, have a good time, and the community just grows from that. So, and I think that's those factors kind of made me want to get back into content creating, and then of course creating the Discord.
I think that was a really good answer. And I learned a lot from that as well. I view your channel as like the hangout spot.
Mm-hmm.
You drop in, and if people are around, you say hi. You know what I mean? And the next thing you know, sometimes you end up in these long conversations with people. And it's a really positive group.
It is, and I'm very proud of it. It's one of those Discords where I didn't know what to expect when it first started. We've had almost zero toxicity, which is incredible for a Discord of 2,000 plus members. It continues to grow, and people just come in with an open heart, with respect. And I think my mods, shout out to my mods, they do a fantastic job of keeping people in line. But the beauty is they barely even have to work, because people do it themselves. I think there's a lot of respect in this Discord, and I think a lot of folks who come in understand where they're coming into. This is not a place of, again, there's no toxicity, there's no male egos, there's no People are better than others. We treat each other the same. I think we're a family, and that family camaraderie plays such a big role in this Discord success. I just can sit back and I feel great about this. And I said this before. I can wake up every morning, have a smile on my face, go into my Discord, and know that the entire 24 hours, if I was away, nothing bad has happened. And I know this because I don't need my mods. I don't need anybody else. I just know the community themselves handle themselves so well that it makes my life so much easier. So I want to thank the folks on Discord and the community for doing an upstanding job of keeping this Discord so civil and mature, and at the same time, hell of a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I will co-sign on that because I'm there a lot, and I see it. And one thing that just always amazes me, and why you can really tell, people there are very mature, is, anytime somebody does do something that's like, against maybe one of the rules, right? Whether it's language or whatever it could be, right? As soon as they're told to, hey, can you remove that post? They do it. There's never any like big dramatic backlash or any fights or anything like that. It's just okay, yeah, we clean it up and we move along.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, shout out to Luke, who's one of my mods. He runs a tight ship there, but at the same time, people respect him, and I think that level of respect is very visible because, like you said, the moment someone's asked to do something, there is really no fight. I mean, at the same time, it's like
it's pretty relaxed.
It's pretty relaxed. Like there's really not a lot of craziness going on in this Discord, right? There's like no nudes, none of that craziness. So I think that alone in itself speaks volumes of the character and the maturity of the Discord and the people within it. So yeah, absolutely, man. And also another thing I want to point out, like, see, there's a lot of different content creators out there. For me personally, I make content for the casual gamer. A lot of people don't understand that about my content. I don't strive to make you the best. I don't strive to say I'm the greatest gamer out there and I'm going to put out the best content. I'm sometimes not even going to put the best strategy out. I make guides for the fathers, the busy men, the busy women, the people who don't have much time to study the game on their own and just want to have fun and learn something along the way. So I think it's really important that a lot of people know that my content is not for elite gaming. It's meant for the everyday down-to-earth player, and I pride myself on that. So if a lot of folks come out and they're like, you know what, your guide wasn't as good as so-and-so's, that's okay. I'm okay with that. I'm not looking to be the best. I'm looking to be the best experience you've had as a person and to make your day better. But I'm not out there looking to give you the best content in the world. If I do, great, right? That's amazing. But if I don't, I'm not worried about it because, again, I want the experience to be about the people and about the actual the message behind the video, not necessarily just about the video itself. So I just want to point that out real quick.
Yeah, well, what you said about the message behind the video is also something that really comes to mind, and something that I was going to work into, this makeshift introduction for you. And with that, I just wanted to say, it's obvious through your, okay, first, it's obvious that you have a very strong moral code. And the reason it's obvious is because, you're very transparent in your videos. You don't try to hide the ball from people. You talk about things like spending, your downfalls here and there, cautionary videos, and that's another thing that you really, especially, I mean, I've watched a lot of YouTube creators on gacha games and stuff. That's not something I've ever seen prior to you. Was somebody talking about, like, somebody successful also talking about, hey, I did this thing and I regret it. I spent, $10,000 or $13,000 on Street Fighter Duel. That's I've told you this before. That's the first video I ever watched of yours. I think that was back in June. And I mean, I was hooked because I was like, just the level of genuineness in that. I don't know can you talk about your morals and why they're so important to you? Because it's obvious that you're very strong on your morals.
Yeah, absolutely. That video was something else. So I guess I can just, for those who didn't watch me back when I started. So I came back in content creating of March 2023. So this year. So I've been back for roughly about, 9 months now. So when I started playing Street Fighter Duel, which I was very psyched about, because Street Fighter plays such a pivotal role in my life, and I always molded myself after Ryu. Like it's crazy the characters you fall in love with and how they shape you as a man growing up. But Ryu was one of my moral codes. He always stood for something that was above himself. Always looking to be better and always bettering himself. And at that point, I had kind of stopped playing gacha games altogether. And I decided, you know what, I'm never going to whale again because I know the detriment that it has caused to my life from a debt perspective. I mean, let's be real, and I've been open about this. In the last 10 years of playing gachas, I could have paid a house out by now, which I think is crazy if you think about it, and how much that set me back financially, right? So when I came back to Street Fighter Duel, something just clicked. I don't know what it was. I told myself I'd never do it again, but I went in hard. And then I had that ever like gut feeling in my stomach saying like, what the hell did you just do? So I decided to go back into content creating, and this time I wanted to take a different approach. When I first started content creating, it was about growing a channel, getting my name out there, just doing it for fun. This time I told myself, you know what, you're going to go back in and you're going to be completely transparent and honest with your community, and you're going to be a role model. You're going to tell people how you fucked up. Excuse my language. Because by doing so, you're going to help your fellow man, your fellow woman, your fellow human being not make the same financial mistakes you made. Now, I work a very good job. I make six figures. That's no secret. I've made that very clear to people. As a content creator, I get to luckily tax a lot of this stuff towards my channel as a business expense. It's still no excuse. People, and this is a addiction that people don't understand is a real addiction. People will talk themselves into spending money on virtual pixels that are leased, that they will lose everything on when everything closes down. It's a real addiction. And I know this because I have that addiction. So when I made that video, I knew over 15 to 16 people that I had spent 50 plus thousand on the game at that point. And I know they had messaged me being like, bro, I'm trying to get a refund. I'm not getting a refund. My wife is going to kill me. I don't know what to do now. So I went on to my video and I said, listen, this is it. I made this mistake. And I don't want you making the same mistake. And I think from that message alone, I had an influx of DMs from people being like, thank you for helping me stop. Thank you for stopping me from making this mistake. So at that point, I kind of made it a mission to ensure that people heard that message once in a while, right? And that it resonated with a lot of people who are gacha gamers, because a lot of people do spend. This industry makes more money than every console and PC industry put together on a yearly basis. And there's a reason why. It takes one whale to buy 70 copies of one game for one console. That's all it takes, and that's one banner. So if you take that into consideration, and they're targeting these human beings because of their addictions, it was something I couldn't stand for anymore. And I still can't. And I have a hard time still knowing that I cover gacha games, and I try to do it in a meticulous way where people understand that when I'm preaching a banner, I'm telling you to spend responsibly or not to spend at all. And I've lost a lot of sponsors because of that. I've lost a lot of people, companies coming up to me, and I've had no regrets. I've straight up told companies no because they were like, promote my product financially. I said no, because that goes against what I stand for. So I think to answer your question, sorry it was such a long-winded answer.
No, you're good.
I think the main thing is, through all of this, being, and I'm going to use this term loosely, being a gamer, and I don't consider myself a gamer anymore, but playing games, I don't want people to fall into the traps of losing their livelihoods for it. It's, at the end of the day, that's exactly what it is. When you play a game, you come out of there having fun, not buyer's remorse, not losing your house, not losing your wife, not losing your family. This is meant to be an experience to let you wind down and forget the pressures of real life. And I think a lot of the times we as quote unquote gamers forget that we're a community of like-minded people who are playing something together. We should be positive about it and look out for one another. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to look out for my fellow human being and not let them fall into these corporate traps, even though they're meant to pretty much trap you every step of the way.
Well spoken. That's one of the reasons I've never done any, I don't know, like the amount of damage I've done to my, bank account over the years has never been so high that, I was in like some serious trouble. But I can tell you the reason your video resonated with me is because I've been that person, though, that was just like the $100 purchase, right? I thought about it for like, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, and then you do it anyway, right? And you had this fight with yourself because you know you don't have this money, you know what I mean, or you shouldn't be spending this money, and then you click it anyway, and then you feel like terrible about yourself.
Yeah.
And so that is what, I mean, that really is what an addiction is, right?
Absolutely.
When you cannot convince yourself to make the right choice because of something inside you that obviously when you do it, it feels like you don't have control over, or at least, you know, you've lost control momentarily or something like that.
Absolutely. And I think, and you know, I've had a lot of experiences in life. I've been through a lot in my life, and I mean, take this how you will, but my motto in life is straightforward, and I've been trying to follow this to a T, is that if your brain and your heart can't agree, then it's not the right decision. If one of those parts are tugging at the other and saying, no, this is wrong for any reason, you're probably making the wrong decision. So, I think a lot of gacha gamers don't give themselves that level of just stepping back and looking at it that way. It's all impulse buying, right? And that's how they get you, because that's why all these pop-ups keep coming up, like 99 cents, then they get you $1.99, then $20.99, and eventually you're just so used to just clicking and not thinking about it because you don't see the bill in your hand that it becomes so easy to purchase. And then the more and more you do it, the less and less you look at your bank account, and then the next day you're like, holy shit, I spent $2,000 and I didn't even know.
That is the other thing that I will say is it is so easy to think you know how much you've spent and think, you know, okay, well, I spent like $250 this month, right? And then
Absolutely.
if you go back and start adding that credit card up, oh my God, how many times has it been like double or more than what you thought your running tally was in your mind? It's kind of nuts. It can get kind of nuts.
It gets crazy, man. Absolutely. So this is why I think having a content creator consciously let people know, like, listen, you need to be careful what you spend is important, because people need to hear that, right? People, and I can tell you now, like, I can't even count now the amount of people who have thanked me and I have to actually quit gacha gaming because it was so toxic to their life. Like, somebody actually had to, and I said this, like, I think the best way to look at it is this way. If your wife went out and bought herself a $10,000 bag and came home with it, and that was on your dime or both of your dimes, how would you feel about that? That's what I asked somebody, that question. And that person was like, I'd kill her. And I said, so what's the difference between her doing that and you spending $10,000 on pixels, which she'll never even see? You can't take it out of the house, and then you lose it eventually because when the company closes. I'm like, who is the real idiot here in this scenario, right? And matter of fact, he's like, yeah, me actually. I'm the idiot, because I'm probably going to stop playing this game in 2 months while she'll have that bag for 15, 20 years. So it's like, and I'm trying to give examples like this. I actually did a whole video, I don't know if you've seen this one, when Dante came out for Street Fighter Duel. I did an entire video about how much Dante will cost. People had no idea what the title meant. And then I literally went into like Expedia.ca. It was like, look, you get a full Dante for $2,000, or you can get yourself all-inclusive trip for 2 weeks to this place. And I was like, here, look, 5 MacBooks. You can buy the entire Devil May Cry collection 45 times over getting this one pixel with a PS5, PS4, PS3, PS2 included. Like, I went through like every possible scenario of spending, like getting one maxed out character that you'll use for a month until he's replaced, versus look what you can get for your actual life and will benefit you from a memory perspective, from a tangible perspective that you can keep. And it blew people away. And that just shows how smart these companies are. If you can take all plausible deniability from people, like if you take away everything from the ability for people to think for themselves and just make them think on the spot, like, oh my God, if I don't buy this, it's gonna, I'll never get this package again. You've done your job as a corporation. You've now screwed over the community of gamers. And my job is to reel you back in, to be like, hey, listen, like, think about this. You've got kids to feed, you've got a family, you've got a real life career, you work 8 hours a day. 8 hours a day, you're going to buy yourself one package that may or may not get you what you're looking for in a gacha system. It's things like those that I think about a lot.
Yeah, I think there was some really good advice in there too, and I hope that anybody, who does think that they may have some issue or is feeling, kind of down about it, either replays this or goes back and watches some of your deeper videos, because there's a couple in there and they're really moving, and I think it sometimes that's the message that people need to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for that. I appreciate you drawing attention to this. I think it's a very important topic that not a lot of people are covering on YouTube.
Absolutely. On a little bit of a lighter note, though, what made you start making videos on YouTube?
Yeah, this was I alluded to MRN, who's
Yeah,
one
you
of my
did.
friends. Yeah, so I when we were playing Naruto X Boruto Ninja Tribes, going back to my old whaling days where I was an idiot, no one was covering the game at the time. COVID was happening. It was a small game. It just had come out. For some reason, some of the bigger content creators just didn't like the game, so decided, you know what, we're not going to cover it. And there was an open market for it. And I was part of a guild called ISC, which was the biggest guild at the time for the game. And I was always on Discord just chatting it up with the players. And the leader, MRN at the time, just kind of got a hold of me and was like, listen, man, you got a good voice. You're well spoken. Why not try this YouTube thing? He had a YouTube channel at the time for the game, very small one. And he was like, give it a try, see if you like it. So I went ahead and tried it. And yeah, I think it was like my first video was like a whale pull. It was a summon video. It was 30 minutes long, shitty mic, no face cam. People were just like, who the hell is this guy? And why is he spending so much money on games?
I've watched that
And
video, by the way.
yeah, yeah, so there you go. So my first video ever. It was embarrassing, but at the same time, it was 30 minutes. And all it took, and I think you know this being a content creator now, all it takes is one good compliment to kind of get you hooked. Right. And I remember the compliment was, hey, you've got a really soothing voice. And I was like, all right, not what I'm going for, but hey, you know what? I'll take it. So it became one of those things where the community started catching on, and then I started enjoying it. And it became like a leisure and something that I was looking forward to every day. So I decided to continue making content. And at the time, I was just making content for fun. And then I realized I actually have a fairly decent mind when it comes down to gaming. I could help a lot of people out that don't understand how games work, and then we just roll from there. And as the channel grew, as the community grew, I started just loving it more. And then, of course, a year in, I decided to stop with the birth of my second child. It was just too much. It was too hard to do with a career, full-time baby. My son, who was born 2 years before that. My wife, obviously didn't want me splitting up my time so much. And at that time, my Discord was a paid Discord on YouTube where I had members, and I had a lot of members, and I was always spending time at nighttime rather than sleeping or taking care of myself. So it became a little bit of a detriment to my health as well. And it's something I vowed this time around I wouldn't do. So when I have not been doing it, I've been focusing on myself a lot. So yeah, it all started with just a simple request to just try. And I'm one of these people in life where if I want to do something, I don't think about it too much. I just do it. Hence why my content is the way it is. I freestyle everything, right? I don't edit. I don't pre-record. Everything you see, I do on the spot. Everything I think of, I do on the spot. And that's just my life in general. I've had to be that person my whole life. I've had from survivability to here, everything has to be, my brain doesn't stop thinking. So that's just how I am. I'm just that person. And it's the same with my book. I wrote a book. I put pen to paper and I just went. I didn't even think twice. I just went and just started writing.
What's it about?
So the book is a medieval fantasy book based on a fictitious world called Thalia. It's about assassins. Actually, Payneblade is actually part of the book. Payneblade Storm is my antagonist in the book, and that's where the name comes from. I could just never put the full freaking name, Payneblade Storm, so it always ends up being Payneblade, and that's how that happens. So if you're wondering what the hell kind of name Payneblade is, well, it's actually from Payneblade Storm, who is the villain in my novel. So I've written a 500-page book. It's out on Amazon. It's been out for a couple of years. Successful enough in my own eyes.
What is it called?
It's called Dark Heart Execution. Book 1 of 3. I've got book 2 written out already by hand. Just don't have time as a father now to finish up book 2s and 3. And I'm telling you, a lot of people are pissed about that because book 1 ends with a very big cliffhanger. So that's the kind of person I am, right? For me, it's like the same with this YouTube channel. The moment I think of something, I'm not gonna overthink. I'm not gonna let people scrutinize me for me to stop. If I enjoy something, if I feel something, I'm just gonna do it. The mayhem that comes afterwards will come afterwards. I'll deal with it at the time. But I'm a very confident person in myself. I'm confident in my abilities to control my emotions, to be able to take hardships, take people's criticisms, and spin them into a way where even if it's meant to be harsh, I use it somehow to make myself a better person. So that's how I started. I started from somebody asking me, pen to paper, quote unquote, and off I went. And here we are.
So, man, there's so much there that I could unpack and expand on. One thing I do want to say, because it's something that we almost have in common, except for I wasn't able to finish it. The fact that you finished writing a novel at all, to me, is extremely impressive, and I'll tell you
Thank you.
why. Before I decided to go to law school, excuse me. Before I decided to go to law school, I actually was getting a master's in English creative writing.
Oh, very nice.
And what I wanted to do was I wanted to be an English professor and a novelist. And
Wow.
yes, and I had this amazing idea for a novel, and I had it all like planned out, and I'd written a whole bunch of it. And then, one thing happens or another thing happens, and you make a million excuses, or at least no, not you. I did. I made a million excuses, and I never finished it. And it's a regret that I have to this day. This was, I mean, we're talking. I started writing this thing back in like 2011.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and I never finished. And it's one of
Yeah.
those.
Yeah.
The longer you get away from it, the less likely you are to ever go back to it. So
Absolutely.
I think it's really cool, and I'm going to check that out. And I think a lot of people will be interested to check that out. And it's very cool to know how that name works into, you know what I mean? You took a character that you made for a novel and then
Yeah.
used it as your name for, being a content creator. I think that's
Yeah.
extremely
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, it's really weird. A lot of people are like, "Where the hell does his name come from?" And I always have to talk about the novel. As a matter of fact, in one of my live streams back when I was doing Naruto, I actually read a chapter of the book because somebody was requesting it, and I found it hilarious that people were asking me to do that. So yeah, I mean, like at the end of the day, I think this is what it comes down to. I never try to really look at life from a monetary perspective, right? I think a lot of people hurt themselves a lot by thinking about the money before the product. They always want to see what's like, if I make this, I want to make sure it makes a lot of money. That's always what's, I think, sits on the back of people's minds. And I think by having that mentality, you really stop yourself from growing as an individual and as a person who probably has a lot to learn and to offer. So my advice to anybody who ever wants to write is literally put pen to paper and just go. And don't worry about the money. Like, most people don't make it. Make it a life goal to complete something for yourself, and make it a bucket list thing. And I promise you'll enjoy the process that much more, because I think that many folks are so concerned with money, and rightfully so, because money makes the world go round, that they forget the purpose in life is to have fulfillment, right? And the fulfillment comes from your own goals, your own achievements. And I promise you, no money in the world will give you that, because the moment you hit a financial goal, you're going to set for another, and then another, and then another, and then you're going to forget that it's not about money at the end of the day. It's about your growth as a human being.
Yeah, we constantly adjust to the money that we have.
Absolutely.
And if you, instead of trying to, ask for more or get more, if you just start focusing on happiness, right, or the other things, I think that is really good advice. So, and you mentioned fulfillment. And, since obviously you make gaming content, I think a good question along with that would be, what would you say, what games throughout your life have had the most impact on you, and why?
Oh, that's a good question. So gaming, gaming plays a major role in my upbringing, and I can tell you guys why. So before moving to Canada, I was born in Russia, right? My mom is Russian, my dad's from Afghanistan. I was born in '83. If you know anything about history, in '83, Afghanistan was taken over by the Taliban, who was hired by the U.S. to actually fight Russia during that war. It was a major war for America and for Russia. So having a father on the Afghani side and having a mother on the Russian side, it was a very, very bleak time in my life. I saw a lot of death. I saw a lot of war. I saw what you see in movies in real life. And I remember a lot of it because I was there until the age of 6 or 7. And then we had escaped through the Pakistani borders, where people were shot and killed just to even run through the border at the time. Luckily, we escaped with just a bowl of food, going up mountains for 14 to 20 hours. And then when we got through, luckily, without being harmed, we jumped on the first flight to Vienna, in Austria, which I actually have a picture of me sitting on Santa's lap in '89. And then that's the most memorable thing of that whole place, because we lived in concentration refugee camps for a good year, which you will not even imagine the level of poverty that brought to us. And now my father was a higher up soldier in the Northern Alliance in Afghanistan. My mother was just a nobody from Russia, and he met her, they married, they eloped. So when we moved to Vienna, we escaped as quick as possible over to America, and then from America we moved to Canada in '89. And I remember I just needed, as a child at that point, at the age of 8 or 9, I just needed some escapism. Just I've seen too much, been through too much. As a matter of fact, we'll go through some of the games that influenced me. So playing, my first time ever seeing a console was an Atari. No idea what the hell it was. It's a joystick, and it was 64 games in one. I had no idea what a game was. I put it on, I got hooked instantly. All my worries were gone. Literally, everything that I could think of that haunted me left my body, left my mind. It was just like an escapism of reality. And I think games continue to evolve with me that way. It helped me forget a lot of the hardships and the drama and the real life trauma that I went through. And as games evolved and they got more graphically advanced, like for example, Super Mario on the Nintendo was a big one. Duck Hunt was a big one. I could never touch a gun, by the way. I never played Duck Hunt because I could never touch a gun. I got scared of that always. But then the Super Nintendo came along. And the first real game that took my heart with it was Chrono Trigger. And I remember this because I remember playing Chrono Trigger as a kid, listening to the soundtracks and thinking to myself how soothing this feels. Like for some reason, it completely took all my worries away. I remember calling in, like telling my mom I'm sick during school weeks because I just want to play more Chrono Trigger. And to this day, when it rains, I think of those days. I think of the days that I sat home by myself for hours and just played Chrono Trigger. And it makes me feel at ease. It gives me a sort of calmness. So whenever the rain goes, even to this day, I feel those days. So Chrono Trigger played a huge part of my life, and it goes down to being the greatest game of all time, not just because of the game and the masterpiece that it is, but also because of the feelings that brought with it. But then there was the opposite effects. I played games like Battletoads. For some reason, the soundtrack for Battletoads made me think of the war. It made me think of how much I could have lost my mom and dad. It made me go into depression. So Battletoads to this day is one of those games where I can't touch because it just brings back so many sorrowful memories. No idea what it is. And I can remember the stage. It's the stage where you go down the esophagus or the stomach lining and you're punching things and you collect, like there's like crows and stuff in there. And it's just something about the beat or the music that just hit me in a way that I just thought about the war all the time. And I looked at my parents and I'd cry. I'm 8 years old and I'm thinking of them dying. Like, it's those kind of things that would push gaming gaming would push me to be so emotional, whether it's good or bad. So in one way, it was an escapism, Chrono Trigger being a huge one, Final Fantasy IV being another big one. So Final Fantasy played a major part of my life. Final Fantasy VI was huge for me. And then eventually, of course, as I got more mature, as memories were replaced with more fond memories of a good life in Canada, gaming became more of a hobby, became more of a passion. So Final Fantasy VII was huge, obviously, when it came out, the PS1 console, PS2 console, etc. So, and then we had Street Fighter tournaments with buddies, and that became a whole different thing altogether. So, yeah, gaming plays a huge part of my life. It was therapeutic. It was an escapism. And at the same time, I got to meet some of my best friends through gaming in tournaments and in just the neighborhoods of having the same things. And I'm doing the same thing at the age of 40 now. I'm meeting a lot of cool people through gaming. So I owe gaming a lot. And I think for any parent, whoever listens to this, if you ever think gaming is stupid for your kid, I promise you now, gaming helped me write a book. Gaming helped me get an IT degree. Gaming helped me push the envelope of my imagination, helped me understand stories better, became a better linguist because of gaming. Gaming isn't for dumb people. Gaming is for smart kids who, if controlled properly in the right environment, can help your kid develop and help your child develop in ways you never imagined that a school can do. So.
That is amazing. I don't think I've ever talked to somebody that has such strong emotional ties to games, one way or both ways, I guess I would say. You know, like the good and the bad, and that the experiences that you went through. I mean, it's unique. I just, I don't, in my life, I've lived I guess, realistically speaking, a pretty sheltered life, and I don't get the opportunity to discuss those kinds of things with people because nobody I know has had those types of experiences. And so I think that's I think you have a very valuable story there with that. And I appreciate you for sharing it.
No, of course, my pleasure. And you know what? I wish that on nobody like to go through this, but the realistic thing in life is a lot of people do face these problems in these different countries, and I've had calls from family back home who've lost their lives over $200 US because somebody killed them over it, or like these things do exist, unfortunately. And if people who live quote unquote a sheltered life, I applaud you for it. Keep living that life, because there are true horrors out there that people can only imagine, and that you see in movies and stuff. And there's a reason why these movies exist, because they're based on facts most of the time. So you know what? Honestly, man, I'm proud of you. I'm good. I'm happy that you're living a life where you never had to experience these things, because most people come out from that being a whole different person, and not in a good way, right? So it can do a lot of irreparable damage to you. From a mental perspective and a physical perspective. So for those who listen to this and feel you've lived a sheltered life, all I can say is good for you. Keep living that sheltered life, and have your children be sheltered as well. You can learn a lot of life lessons without going through the hardships. It's all there.
Well, and I think part of learning that, though, is not ignoring it, but actually listening to stories like yours, to be fair.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think and this is why I'm so open about these kind of things. I think it's important for people to hear these kinds of struggles and these kinds of hardships, for them to better understand and appreciate not only the person, but also appreciate their own life, right? And I've noticed that a lot. I've done a lot of public speaking about this. I've done a lot of I've had friends write essays about this, and it never fails to amaze people what somebody can go through. And to me, it never fails to amaze me how much it affects people's lives when they hear something like this. So yeah, absolutely, man. I'm more than happy to share these things, and I think it's important that people do hear it once in a while, because I think it puts perspective on their own life as well.
I couldn't agree more. And so, okay, I know I don't want to take a whole lot of your time, so I have a couple questions left.
Sure.
I figure, I've got to ask you at least one Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis type question, okay?
Yeah.
And, I thought really hard about this, and I thought I'd go ahead and approach it from, obviously your like, what games mean to you, your experience with games and all of these things, your experience with people who play games, from your community. I think you'd be really, just a really good person to address this, especially if any devs ever see this. So with Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis, and I think you've had the same experience I have, putting out videos about the battle towers, right? They're just generally not very well received. Not that people don't like them, people just don't watch them. And, I can't really figure it out, but I guess my question to you is, knowing that, it seems to be people's least favorite content in the game, so much so that I don't think they even really care a whole lot about it. Not everybody, but, more or less. What do you think a developer could learn from that, and what do you think they could do to improve?
It's a good question. So I'll answer the one part. Why do I think people don't want to watch the content as much? I think there is a very big reason for it, and I think a lot of people don't want to do the battle tower. I'll be real with you. I think a lot of people don't like to do the battle tower. I don't think it's their cup of tea, because the battles are too long, or just the rewards aren't as much as they'd want. So for the developer, I think more incentive to do battle tower is step number one. So every floor should have battle crystal or blue crystals. I think every floor, not 5 and 10 only. Every floor should have minimum 50 to 100 blue crystals. You'll solve that problem instantly. People who run out of crystals will be going straight to there to do as much content as possible. So I think it's that step number one for a developer, more incentive. Because we have the ability to get the character memory fragments from the premium shop as well as other sources, it makes it a little less enticing to go back into the battle tower and spend 30, 40 minutes on a battle when you can do 5 minutes on a premium quest every day and get the same amount almost or more for a specific character. So I think that's problem number two. It's just the incentive to go in is not worth it. And then from a viewer perspective, like I said, I think people aren't doing it. I think people are not interested in the battle tower. I don't think there is enough interest, and the battles are difficult. And I think a lot of people are not into spending their whole day doing that, which is crazy to me, because it's the only content that doesn't really require stamina, that you can do over and over and over again and actually reap some decent rewards. So yeah, I mean, listen, when I first came out with the videos for Battle Tower, I told myself, oh man, people are going to love this. The Astral Giant, so many people are stuck on it. It was the least viewed thing on my channel. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, I thought people wanted to see this. And then I went and did like floor 50 and 60, and then I was just like, nobody wants to watch this shit. Yeah, I mean, it's a mystery. It's a mystery, man. It's a mystery, but I think a lot of to do is with incentive.
Yeah, I know, and that's why I asked, because yeah, it's the lowest watched videos on my channel as well, by like a lot. Like my very lowest watched video is a Battle Tower video, and
Yeah,
the reason I agree with you, and I think it's that people just don't care to do them, is because it's not like I'm getting dislikes or bad comments. It's just people aren't even clicking on the video. Like they
right.
just don't care about the content, and I
Yeah,
think that the devs should care about that, because obviously they put a lot of effort into making 70 floors of content, right?
absolutely.
With fights that each have, like, you have to plan almost a different team for almost every fight. But to have people ignore it, I think that should be a pretty big sign about, like, what it is you're putting out, and maybe adjust that.
Absolutely, totally agree, man. And I think the devs have a lot of work to do when it comes down to some of the content in this game. Some things they do really, really well. Battle Tower, unfortunately, is not one of those things they do really well. And I think if they go back to the drawing board and just rethink some of their strategies, they're onto something good. They just gotta again readjust and incentivize a lot more than they have, and I think people will be all over it.
Yeah, and I guess one last thing I will say, and I'd like to know if you agree. I do think that the developers of this game, they seem to be experimenting a little bit, and trying to kind of like implement feedback. So I see it anyway, and I personally think that's a really good sign for the game.
Absolutely, yeah, no, I totally agree. Like, you know, as a content creator, it's funny the amount of hate I see for games sometimes, and I just shake my head because there are so many worse games out there, that do things way worse than Applebot. So I have to commend Applebot. Yes, they've had a lot of problems. Yes, there's been a lot of bugs. Hasn't been the smoothest release, but one thing they do well, in my opinion, is they listen. They listen and they do it well, and I think that needs to be commended. It's not always fun to shit on devs all the time, and I know a lot of people do it, but I think Applebot has done a great job with this game, and I think they continue doing a great job with it. So I hope Ever Crisis continues to grow and garners more players, especially with the Steam release.
I do too. I really enjoy playing this game, so I really am rooting for it. Okay, so at this point, we've covered community, morals, games, your novel, which was Dark Heart Execution. Is that right? Did I get that
Yeah,
right?
that's right. That's right.
Okay. We've covered a lot. All things obviously that are very important to you. But one thing, and this is the last question I have for you, one thing that has stood out to me from the first time I discovered your channel is how you identify yourself. The first word of your bio on YouTube is husband, followed by down to earth dad of two, and then gamer, right? So it's husband, down to earth dad of two, and gamer. Being a husband and father of two, I mean, this has so much depth to me. I mean, you're a guy who's known for his gaming content, yet a gamer is the last thing you describe yourself as. And just can you tell us why?
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny you notice that. It takes a dad to and a husband to notice that. So that was very meticulous, and that was they're very purposeful. The reason why I wrote that. So first and foremost,
I felt that it was too. It's just
yeah,
why
no,
I
absolutely,
asked.
absolutely. So thank you for noticing that. So first off, husband. Of course, I pride myself for being a husband. I think it's a calling for myself. I'm very proud of the husband that I am. I'm very happy in the marriage that I'm in. I love my wife to death, and I take pride in being a husband. And I think it's one of the only forms of loyalty in the world left for men. I mean that wholeheartedly, because this world we live in right now is riddled with temptation, lust, you name it. It's so hard for a man to be a man, and especially a loyal man. So I pride myself in being a husband first and foremost. Then, of course, my beautiful wife gave me two amazing children. They're my world. So more importantly, my job as a father comes first over anything else. I love being a husband, but my job as a father comes before everything. So my children are my life. And lastly, I write the word gamer, and I wasn't even going to put that anymore because I don't even consider myself a gamer anymore. And it's funny to say that for somebody who makes gaming content to say that, but I think I'm embarrassing the everyday gamer now if I call myself a gamer. I'm a lover of games. I don't think I'm a gamer. I think my gamer days died with the introduction of Call of Duty in the online world. I realized that I'm not I'm not built for it. I realize that I like my solo games. I realize that I don't like to play online games with, unless it's an MMO once in a while. I'm just not built for the gaming world anymore. I'm not. Like, the toxicity behind being a gamer, the competitiveness behind being a gamer, the demand for time for being a gamer is so beyond me now that I think that me calling myself a gamer would embarrass a real life gamer. So I think I'm a game enthusiast. I think I love games, but I'm not a gamer. So I probably should even change that. I should write game enthusiast. But yeah, that's why it's last on the list, because I'm no longer that. I can't call myself a gamer. I'm not. I just love games. And again, games lead me to a more important part of life, which is the community. So it's a means to an end to meet people and to enjoy those same hobbies with those same set people. So yeah, that's why.
That makes a lot of sense. And I know you take a lot of most of your weekends off. You don't really put out any content most weekends, or at least a majority of them, so that you can spend time with your family. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, so I do most of my content gets created either when I'm on break at work during the weekdays, but on weekends it's full family time. My kids get 100% of me. My wife gets 100% of me, and then the moment they go to sleep, I pump out 2-3 videos if I can, and then we call it a day. But yeah, it's my whole heart, my whole mind, my soul is with them. I don't. I try my best not to mix the two worlds, because one can overtake another, and that's not fair to for my family to have that.
I admire that very much about you.
Thank you.
Well, that's everything I had. So I want to ask you at this point, was there anything that you wanted to say that we didn't cover, or anything you wanted to shout out, or anything like that at this point before we call it?
Yeah, absolutely. So first off, I want to thank you for the time and effort of doing all this. I appreciate you. You have been an absolute, believe it or not, an inspiration for a lot of content creators. I've talked to a few folks, and they're looking at you and they're saying, first off, how nice of a guy you are, how easy you are to approach and talk to, and they instantly feel like you're friends with them. So kudos to you for, number one, being there for your community, and number two, for being a hell of a guy. So thank you for that. Number two, shout out to the Discord, shout out to the community for Final Fantasy 7. Shout out to my community in general for whatever you play, whatever you watch. I love you guys. If it's not for you, folks like Nite and I would not exist. So you guys mean everything to this process, and just know that you are the reason why we do what we do. It's not because of the money. It's not because of the games. Everything eventually will stop, but you guys will always exist. So I appreciate you. I also want to say rest in peace to Dre, who is a subscriber of mine who I made a dedicated video to. His mother reached out to me a month ago. I promised myself I would say something if I had a chance. So, his mom reached out to me on a video and said, thank you for dedicating this video to my son. He passed away and couldn't stop talking about it. We watched the video numerous times before he passed, and that's the kind of stuff that means the world to me. It's touching, and I just want to say shout out to his family, and hope you guys are finding peace within your loss. And then lastly, I want to ask you a question. You've been asking me all these damn questions.
Okay. All
right. So, two questions actually, if you don't mind. First one, why the hell Nightlight? Where did that come from?
It's funny. Nobody's ever asked me specifically where it came from. I've had some people ask me about it. They just assumed that it was wordplay. And I'm going to be completely honest here. Mm-hmm. I stole it.
Okay.
From a book. I had read this book back in 2000. Man, I don't even know. 2007, maybe.
Okay.
Somewhere in there. And in the book, there was an online community of people, and one of them went by the moniker Nightlight 9, and I thought that was the coolest name that I had ever heard for an internet name, and I started using it. So I have for 15 plus years now. I've just been using it. I just love the way it sounded. That's hardcore using it. I mean, it's everywhere on every game I've ever played. That was my name.
That's amazing. Well, there you go. You took it and ran with it. That nobody knows the book now. Everybody just knows you.
I wish I had a cooler story than that, but that is the honest to God truth of how I came up with it.
I came mine from a book and it was my own, so I get it. I appreciate that.
A little bit cooler.
Oh yeah, that's okay though. No, it's a great name and it's a great logo, and I was just always curious. So I wanted to ask you in this interview over just asking you personally. So thank you for sharing that. And number two, I just want to ask you, outside of obviously I know you are a criminal lawyer, and you work a very high demanding job. And you asked me why I started a channel. I want to ask you the same thing. Why did you start a channel knowing you have kids, you have a wife, you have a family, and a very high demanding job? Is this a stress release for you? Are you looking for something to get out of this, or is this just a fun thing for you to do on the side?
Wow. Man, I really appreciate you actually deciding to ask me any questions. I
Yeah, of
just want to
course.
say that, like, I'm very flattered
Yeah, my
to
pleasure.
hear you. Like, I don't know. It's just flattering to me.
Yeah, no,
Um,
no worries.
so yeah, I'll be honest. Okay. I'm gonna try to make this as concise as possible, but also, give the full explanation. So I started watching your videos. Like I said, I don't remember if it was exactly June or July, sometime in that realm. And the first, like, because of Street Fighter Duel, and I found that video. I think it was the very first one I ever watched. The one talking about spending all that money and
Hmm.
regretting it or whatever. And I was like, okay, and so I started watching everything, like everything, every one of your guides, and then I started just watching every single video. And I started my own firm this year. So, prior, like, the last 5 years, I've worked, as a both an assistant prosecutor as well as a public defender, just all in the criminal sphere. And
Congratulations on that, by the way, on opening
thank
your own
you.
firm.
Thank you. Yeah, so I started my own firm, and it's cool because now I'm my own boss, but it's also hectic, because you're like also the manager. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Hmm.
A lot of administrative stuff, but it's also kind of slow. You know what I mean? Like, you just started, it takes some time. So I had a lot more time on my hands than normal. So I'm, you know, after I get everything kind of set up, I'm sitting around waiting on phone calls, right? And
Hmm.
while I'm doing that, I'm playing games because I love to play video games. And
Right.
I'm watching you on YouTube. That's like literally a day in my life,
That's
like for the
hilarious.
first like half of this year, right? Or
Very
probably
flattering.
even,
Thank you. Very
yeah.
flattering.
Well, it's the truth. And um, I don't know. The more I was watching it, I started feeling a little bit guilty. You know what I mean? Like, man, I mean, not that I had a choice, right? Like, I'm advertising, I'm doing things, trying to get calls, handing out cards and whatever. But at some level, I'm like, I don't know. I don't want to feel guilty for playing games because I never had before in my life, But I was like, man, some days that's like all there is to do.
Yep.
And,
Yep.
and I was like, I wish there was at least something productive that could come of the time that I spend gaming. And I've always kind of wanted to be like, I'm a little bit of a creative person, hence like why I wanted to be, a writer in one life or another.
Yep.
And,
Yeah.
so I just thought, I watched you and I was like, I liked your message. And the way you came across was very inspirational. It was very encouraging in a way that is hard to describe because at that time, and you had no idea who I was, but I'm getting inspired by you, and I felt direct encouragement, which is kind of a callback to my very first question. Like, I felt like you knew who I was, even though you didn't. Um, so yeah, I was like, you know what if I just started making videos,
Hmm.
and I researched a little bit, and they were like, do something you're passionate about. And I'm like, well, I'm really passionate about video games because I mean, I like them. They're fun for me, and I wanted to do something fun. And the more I put out stuff and the more exposure I get, I'll be honest with you, I do a lot of work on my videos,
You
and
do.
I do. There were weeks in the beginning where I was honestly putting 50 hours in a week
That's
between
crazy.
researching and editing and recording, and it doesn't seem like it from what you would see on the screen, but I was. But it didn't feel like work, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Totally.
it's sort of a pipe dream, but yeah, if there was ever an avenue where I could do this full time, it would be something that I would be extremely interested in pursuing. Um, so although right now it seems like a hobby, I still kind of treat it like it's like my other job in a way, but I enjoy doing it. I have I'll be
Good for you.
honest, a lot of passion for it.
Good for you.
So
And it shows. And it shows. It absolutely does. And I want you to take that to heart. Like it actually does show. And your level of effort, your level of content, your like actual drive is admirable, and it's very visible. And I really do feel like you will be absolutely successful if you keep on this path. So I think you're doing the right thing, especially because you have love for it, and I think you will definitely be going places in this industry.
well, thank you very much.
Yeah,
It's
of
like
course.
it's one of the greatest compliments I could have received.
No,
So
my absolute pleasure. And
I
I'm being
I
completely
have
honest.
I believe, I know, I can tell. I can tell in your voice. I've had the best conversation tonight, and I really just one last time I want to thank you for all of the amazing and thoughtful answers that you've given me to all these questions. The fact that you know have spent now over an hour of your time, and I know you've got a lot going on, and all the kind things you've said about me and everybody else. Like, just thank you. That's it. And I'd like you to send us off.
Sure. First off, thank you as well. Obviously, the time spent has been duly appreciated, and I love you guys so much as a community. Nite, you're an amazing person. Continue on this path. I think you've got everything it takes to make it big here. For the community watching this, thank you for spending your time and your evening with us. You'll catch us in different EC videos, but these kind of videos and interviews are very special. So I hope you guys take these to heart. Watch them over and over again and give this man some support. Nightlight is an incredible content creator and a person, and I think he deserves a lot of you guys to sub, to like, to support. Not plugging him, I'm just being completely honest. I would not be spending a whole hour and a bit with him if I wasn't telling you the truth. So again, thank you, Nite, for the time. I appreciate the community for watching. Keep doing great work, and I'll see you guys on the next video.